Okay, hello students. This is Miss Neal and we are doing our tutorials on jurisdiction based off of your questions. Okay, so first question I have is the United States has the highest incarceration rate. Do you think changing the system will bring it down? Okay, um, I think that you're going to have to change lots of systems in order to affect the incarceration rate. You're going to have to change education. You're going to have to change a lot of different things, not just necessarily the criminal justice system. We do need to look at how we treat certain crimes, such as drug-related offenses. I think sometimes we punish the drug addicts, and we don't go after the drug pushers as much. And so maybe that would help the situation. But a lot of things impact crime. So we have to look at just more than just the criminal justice system. Why does the appellate court have more judges? Well, because the appellate court, the whole purpose of the appellate court is just to review the trial court proceedings for errors. So that's legal errors. So you have more lawyers, because judges are lawyers. So you have more lawyers who are looking at this and they're able to talk. It's kind of like the idea that more brains are better than one. Okay, so you have multiple judges with their legal minds and they're discussing, because they do discuss their decisions, and then so that way you have a better chance of getting a more fair and just opinion on an appeal. Can court cases fall into multiple jurisdictions within the same region? Um, yes, because like when you look at the federal court system, Texas is in the Fifth Circuit. So they're in the Fifth Circuit with Mississippi and Louisiana. So if you have a crime that is both a state and a federal crime, then they could be in the same court within the same region. Because if it's, there's a federal court in Dallas. Well, if it's a state crime, you could go to court in Dallas and they have jurisdiction, the state court system, and then also the federal court system. If you kill someone in another part of where you live, why can they try you twice? Wouldn't that be double jeopardy? I'm not quite sure what you're asking. It's not double jeopardy if two courts have jurisdiction over the same crime. So if you have like bank robbery, since it's a federal crime and a state crime, a federal court and a state court can have jurisdiction, and that's not double jeopardy for them both to try you, because they both have jurisdiction and they have a right to exercise their jurisdiction. Does federal court always overrule state court? No, the only time that federal courts, well, obviously, if it's the Supreme Court overrules every single court because they're the highest court in the land. But the only time a federal court is going to overrule what a state court says is if it's an appeal based on a constitutional issue. So if it's a constitutional issue and you appeal to a federal court from a state court, kind of like Miranda versus Arizona, where he was convicted in state court and he appealed to a federal court because he was like, wait a minute, my constitutional rights were not honored, then that overrules. But that's the only way that the federal court has jurisdiction over a state court matter, is if it's a constitutional issue. If there's no constitutional issue involved, then the federal courts have no say in what the state courts have decided. Do the charges in different states stack up? Charges are gonna stack up, means that multiple charges. Like when I gave the example of the child molester who had 200 and something counts of indecency with the child, that means every time he molested a child, that's a count. Okay. So they typically do that. That's just something that's done, is that they do the charges at however many charges they can do. So that's something that's just done. Would they be able to take you to court 4 times, the federal and the state court for 2 states? Okay, so if you commit, I'm not quite sure what this question is, but if you commit a crime and it's a federal and a state crime, the state court can try you, the federal court can try you. But they can only try you once. So I don't know where the 4 times comes in. If the state court has tried you for that crime, they can't try you again for that crime because that would be double jeopardy. It's not double jeopardy when the state court tries you and then the federal court tries you. Okay. Why do small courts want more power? For what reasons do they want more power? Small courts don't necessarily want more power. I just use that as an analogy to kind of help you remember limited jurisdiction, and that, you know, it's a smaller court. They don't have as much power as a district court or an appellate court, but they just have limited. It's like a city court. They just can hear tickets, things that are not that serious. Okay. Okay, so extradition, this person wants to know more in depth on why and how extradition occurs. Okay, extradition actually, you know, when you think about someone having a warrant from another state or another city and they get picked up in Arlington and they have a warrant from Colorado for murder. Well, they got picked up in Arlington because they committed a burglary. Well, burglary obviously is not as serious as murder. So when Arlington sees that they have that warrant, Arlington Police Department, they're going to call Colorado and say, hey, we've picked up this person that you have a warrant out for murder. And Colorado's going to come get that person so that way they can prosecute them in Colorado for murder. And it happens quite frequently. It's just that most of the time people don't know that that's the term, the extradition. So that's what happened. Whenever you hear about something like that, where someone's being sent to another place to face charges, that's extradition. That's just what happened. Okay, and so it occurs because, you know, people they flee from justice all the time. So if, you know, they commit a murder someplace, they may leave if they're not immediately caught. They may leave that area and then they may get picked up somewhere else. So it's just a way to keep people who commit crimes from getting away with those crimes. Why does Puerto Rico only have dual court system? Okay, well, Puerto Rico doesn't have a dual court system. They have a one court system. Puerto Rico is not a state. They are a territory, so they don't have a state court system. They have a federal court system. So they only have one court. They are not like one actual court, you know, in the whole area of Puerto Rico, but they just have one court system. They're part of the federal court system. Okay. Why is it important to know dual court system? Well, it's important to know because we're going to be talking about cases a lot, and you've already kind of worked with those cases, some cases in an infographic, and we're going to do more of, you know, talking about different kinds of appeals because it explains how our system is and how it is now and why we have the rules. The rules that we have now in criminal justice, they all come from cases. And so we're going to look at those cases. And so if you're going to have a better understanding of the case if you understand that most of these cases started in a state court and then now they're appealing based on a constitutional issue. So you'll be able to better understand that if you understand the dual court system. If you don't understand the dual court system, you're going to be confused. Especially, I already saw that where some of y'all were telling me when it says the court decision, you were telling me the original court, the trial court's decision. And when you're doing a case brief, that's not the decision that you want. You want to know what the appeals court said. Okay, last question. Is there any way to appeal to courts of another jurisdiction? Well, the court, first of all, has to have jurisdiction over the case. So if they don't have jurisdiction over the case, then you can't appeal to that court. So for example, if you are in Texas and your trial is in Texas, you can't appeal to a court in Oklahoma because Oklahoma has no jurisdiction over any cases in Texas. So yeah, the court first has to be able to have that jurisdiction. So if they don't have jurisdiction over the case, then you can't appeal to that court. Okay. So I hope this has explained your questions about jurisdiction. Remember, there are different types of jurisdiction. There's geographical, which is the area. There's subject matter, which is things like juvenile and family court. Then you have concurrent jurisdiction, is where two courts have jurisdiction over the same case. Then we also have original jurisdiction, the court that hears the case first, which is always going to be the trial court or the district court. We have appellate jurisdiction, which is jurisdiction to review lower court's decision. And then, of course, we have limited jurisdiction. And limited jurisdiction is you have limited or small powers, so you can't hear all cases. All right, so I'm going to put this on YouTube, and I hope this is helpful. If you have any more questions, I'm going to put this in Canvas, and you can always either use the remind system or you can send me a message in Canvas with more questions. All right, bye.